Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this special episode, and don't forget to support our Patreon. Just $1 or more will get you early access to all of our content as well as other special features. Enjoy the show! The following is a fan-based video review under fair use. The Mummy is owned by Universal Pictures and the Boris Karloff and Karl Freund estate. Please support the official release. To the BigJackFilms Halloween special, taking a look at all the classic Universal Studios monsters. And on today's review, we have gone from the Transylvania vampires to the monsters of Germany. Now we enter the pyramids of Egypt with 1932's The Mummy, starring the always lovable Frankenstein, Boris Karloff. That is the worst impression I've ever done. During a British Museum-sponsored archaeological expedition to Egypt led by Sir Joseph Wimple, played by Arthur Bryan, the team discover a mummy in a highly built sarcophagus which holds the High Priest Imhotep, played by Boris Karloff, who comes to life and walks into the desert night after being accidentally summoned from the dead. 10 years later, a new expedition led by Sir Joseph's son, Frank Wimple, played by Dracula hero David Manners, finds the tomb of Princess Anaxanamun, Imhotep's lost love. But when the mummy returns, no pun intended, fully formed in human flesh and blood, he discovers his love's coffin being placed in a museum and kills anyone in his path. In order to revive her completely, Imhotep requires Helen Grosvenor, played by Zita Joanne, to die for him in a ritual sacrifice so he can revive her and make her a living mummy like himself due to her being the reincarnation of Anaxanamun. Well, this one is an interesting take. Obviously, some of this plot is very similar to the Brendan Frasier movies, most notably the first 1999 film. Which it is, but while I enjoy the remake maybe a tad bit more, which trust me, we'll get to that series sometime down the road, I gotta say that the original has a lot of greatness and glory on par with those films, and is worth a high praise up there with Dracula and Frankenstein. A lot of people seem to pass on The Mummy either for the remake or that compared to the other monsters is a tad weaker, but I beg to differ because I actually do love the original incarnation that Boris Karloff brought to the table, as he did with Frankenstein's monster. The Mummy in this film definitely has a master plan up his bandaged sleeves. But in this film, you actually feel sorry for him and actually want him to succeed. He's not trying to rule the world or cause massive amounts of death. He just wants his love back and to live a happy life with her. Hence why the film is regarded as a love story that's lasted for thousands of years. And Karloff has since improved following Frankenstein, along with Jack Pierce's amazing makeup, which from what I've heard, Karloff was much more comfortable in.
You have studied our ancient arts, and you know that you cannot harm me.
As much as I like the last two films, Universal brings back some favorites, with of course Edward Van Sloan and David Manners in their heroic parts. While David Manners is a totally different character in context, I'm still on Team Edward for this one, as playing a different character but undercover is the monster hunter himself, Van Helsing.
If I could get my hands on you, I'd break your dried flesh to pieces.
Zita Joanne is also great as Helen. Unlike the previous damsels in distress, Helen in this film actually cares for the monster's well-being and is willing to help him to resurrect his fallen princess from the dead, which for the time was a huge milestone for female characters in the horror genre. This is back when monsters were scary and girls were just pretty for the cameras. Nothing too exciting, but hey, that was the times back then. I'm not going to get too much into the rest of the characters because much like the last two movies, they're about the same as before and I don't want to repeat myself. One thing I can say about this film is that the set design and cinematography is actually really impressive for 1932. It's Universal sound stages, but for what they're worth, they look amazing, especially when Imhotep takes over. The film also is much more gory than the previous films, with people being impaled and buried alive. A lot of it was, of course, cut in later releases and eventually restored on home video. Now, a minor flaw I have is that this film seems like it's cutting a few corners in the production. For example, the opening music you'd think would have an iconic classical note, but they instead use Swan Lake again from Dracula, which to me was always confusing. Is this the theme to Dracula or the Mummy? I'm sure there are several other classical pieces that would have fit better for Imhotep. Not to mention, like I said before, Universal likes to reuse actors constantly, and this is where it starts to become a little repetitive, making me shorten this review so I don't repeat myself. Seriously, why the hell do they keep doing that? This would become a tradition for the majority of the monster movies yet to come. But in a way, I guess you could say it's a nice nod to the monster fans nowadays. Now, I would more than likely talk about comparisons to the remake, however, I don't want to do that at the moment for a few reasons. One, the 1999 film is vaguely based on the original, but it takes more from the in-name only sequels, which have no connection to the original. And second, I have plans to cover the entire set of Brendan Frasier movies down the road, so I'll maybe save comparisons for another time. Overall, The Mummy is a great bone chiller and makes for a good third member of the Universal Monster Club. Boris Karloff and the cast once again do a fantastic job, the sets are vastly bigger than before, the story is both scary and romantic, and if you're the type who enjoy the Frasier films, maybe this one isn't for you for its slower pace, but if you want to see where the Mummy genre began, it's a good education for film buffs and gets a good chilling 9.2 out of 10. So, grab some popcorn and a soft drink and wrap yourself up for a chilling night with The Mummy. So that was my review of Boris Karloff's The Mummy, and quite frankly, this 1932 gem is on par with the 1999 film. So what's next for the Universal Studios monsters? Well, join me next time when we jump into the 1940s and take an interesting look at a furry creature starring the son of the Phantom of the Opera. So we'll see you next time.